Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Caroline Moulton, Vice President of External Affairs, and it's a pleasure to welcome you today to Bridging the Gap. This is the 17th Bridging the Gap, and while it looks a little different from most years, we are still just as thrilled that you have joined us. First, a little housekeeping. Please remain on mute. If you have any questions, please enter them into the chat. Now let's get started. The first half is a panel discussion. After a brief introduction of our 5 panelists, we will open the floor to questions from our audience. Following the panel discussion, we share the panelists' information with you to network further if needed. Our first panelist is Ms. Kimberly Dandridge. Kimberly graduated with a degree in broadcast journalism in 2012 and went on to attend law school at Texas Southern University. She currently serves as Associate Corporate Counsel at Amazon. Prior to joining Amazon, Dandridge was counsel in the Global Legal Department at Gap Incorporation and provided legal counsel to the family of brands including Old Navy, Athleta, Gap, and Banana Republic. In addition to practicing law, Dandridge is a published writer and has contributed to publications like Forbes, Teen Vogue, and The Well. While in law school, Dandridge completed an internship at the White House under the Obama administration in the Office of Presidential Personnel. Next, we have Mr. Tyler Macbeth, who received a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology in 2013. Upon graduation, Macbeth completed a nursing degree at Samford University. He began his career nursing at Ochsner Medical Center in New Orleans and Neurosurgical Intensive Care Unit. Currently, Macbeth is in New York City at NYU Langone Medical Center, where he also serves on the LGBTQ Advisory Council. In 2018, Tyler began working towards becoming a family nurse practitioner. He will graduate this December and has plans to further his career in New York City as a nurse practitioner in men's health. Next, originally from Corinth, Mississippi, Austin Powell graduated from the university in 2017 with degrees in philosophy and public policy leadership and a minor in business administration. During his time on campus, he served as ASB president among his other student activities. After graduation, he obtained a Master of Science degree from the University of Oxford in criminology and criminal justice. Currently, Powell resides in San Francisco and works for Facebook's risk and response team. In his role, he works closely with public policy, legal, product managers, and engineers to create and implement workflows that mitigate risk for users and society at large. Our next panelist, Ms. Eden Sandlin, received a Bachelor of Journalism in Integrated Marketing and Communications in 2016. Currently, she is an executive assistant at the New York Times working in advertising. Prior to the Times, Eden held editorial positions at Hearst as an editorial and executive assistant, working with The O, The Oprah Magazine, Elle Decor, House Beautiful, and Fernanda. Eden is an experienced professional with a demonstrated history working in the publishing industry. She is skilled in journalism, marketing, and communications, and digital media. Our final panelist is a native of Oxford, Mississippi. Fletcher Whitwell earned degrees in both journalism and business from the University of Mississippi, where he also was inducted into the university's Hall of Fame. In his current role, Whitwell is the chief architect of R&R Partners' diversely talented teams in media, measurement, and insights. He also serves as one of the agency's group managing directors, helping lead strategic planning for the brand teams and clients in several offices. Whitwell has overseen integrated partnerships for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority and all of R&R's clients with such media outlets as Sports Illustrated, Jimmy Kimmel Live, ESPN, E!, Bon Appetit, Google, and CBS Radio. He was named to Vegas Incorporation's 40 Under 40 list of top business professionals in Southern Nevada for 2015, as well as one of the Distinguished Men of Nevada. Please join me in welcoming our 2020 Bridging the Gap panelists. Now, I would like to give the panelists the opportunity to tell us briefly, in about 1 to 2 minutes, a little more about themselves. We will start with Ms. Dandridge.
First of all, thank you all so much for having me. It's really great to be a part of this panel with other great alums from the university and to share with you all about a little bit about my experience. So I currently live in Seattle. I, as Caroline said, am Associate Corporate Counsel in the legal department at Amazon, and I support mobile business development. And so I currently work with mobile operators to integrate the Amazon shopping app onto devices. And we also work with mobile carriers to offer Amazon services to their customers. So really exciting work, but it always keeps me busy. I try to come home back to Mississippi every chance that I get, but it's been really nice to start my career here on the West Coast and to be a part of the tech world. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have about law school or working in tech or corporate America. I started after law school at a law firm in Memphis, Tennessee, actually, a firm that's actually based in Mississippi, Butler Snow, started my practice there. And then after leaving Butler Snow, got an opportunity to go to Gap, moved to San Francisco, and then shortly after got an opportunity to come here to Seattle to Amazon. And so one of the biggest things that I think for me that's been a big learning lesson has just been taking opportunities as they come and just being ready to go. Moving to San Francisco from Memphis was so random, but I was given the opportunity and just kind of went on a whim and just went to San Francisco, and then got the opportunity to come to Seattle. Didn't think twice about it, just kind of came to Seattle. And so my biggest advice to all of you is really to just be open to take risk and take the jump. And I'm happy to answer any other questions as we go along.
Mr. Whitwell, if you'd like to go next, that'd be great.
All right, thanks everyone for having me. And similar to Kimberly, excited to be a part of this panel. Everyone is very talented on the panel, so congratulations to you all. It is exciting to see people that graduated at Ole Miss be successful. So hopefully we can give you any insights today. But yeah, like you said, Caroline, I'm from Oxford. Originally, I went to Oxford High School, and then I went to the University of Mississippi and graduated in 1997. So a little bit older than most of the panelists here. So either I have more wisdom or you guys have more relevance. And then after graduating Ole Miss, went to Memphis, similar to Kimberly, worked there for 2 years. And then a similar story where she randomly went to San Francisco. I randomly moved to Chicago. Only knew one person there, but it was a great start to my career, and was able to work at Leo Burnett Starcom, which is one of the premier advertising agencies. And then from there, decided to move somewhere warmer in Las Vegas, and we call it Nevada. But I've been here for 14 years at R&R Partners, and we're most known for the What Happens Here Stays Here Vegas campaign, but we do a ton of other great work, and look forward to sharing, my experience, not only like through journalism, but working at the Student Media Center, all the networking and connections I think that helped me propel from leaving Ole Miss to the real world. And yeah, just excited to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Whitwell. Mr. Macbeth, if you'd like to go next, that'd be great.
Hey guys, like everyone else said, it truly is such a pleasure to be here today with everyone on the panelists, and also getting to see a fellow classmate of mine from Ole Miss, Kimberly. Good to see you. But for everyone else, it's nice to meet you, and it's nice to hear about everyone else's experience and professional move throughout their careers post-graduation at Ole Miss. Originally, I am from Biloxi, Mississippi. Went to Ole Miss, and like Carolyn mentioned earlier, I graduated in 2013. Originally, I went to Ole Miss with the intentions of being pre-med, so I'm happy to answer questions for any students that are out there that are struggling or on the track of trying to figure out what type of medical industry they might want to go into next. So originally psych pre-med, and then obviously determined down the road that nursing was a better fit for me, and I can share a little bit more info about that later. But ultimately went back to do a second degree accelerated nursing program that started in 2013 at Stanford University. And that allowed me the opportunity to move to New Orleans and start my career in neurosurgery, which is something that I became very passionate about throughout nursing school. Obviously I had the long-term intention of going back to school. So I was kind of on somewhat of a timetable. If you can hear a little bit about my story, you could probably tell that it's pretty much every single year it has been like a different degree of focus of education, which is unfortunately the route of medicine and to any extent, but also just kind of how things have panned out. So it's been a very interesting journey, being in Birmingham and then New Orleans, and leaving New Orleans to then come to New York as a travel nurse in 2018, which is when I also started graduate school. So it was a little bit of a kind of picking up my life and just turning it upside down, but it was also the best experience for personal growth and professional growth. And being able to work for an institution like NYU has definitely given me opportunity to just make connections and the ability to learn more than I could have ever expected. Obviously, moving forward in my career plan to, like Carolyn mentioned, work in men's health, which is something that I've since become passionate about throughout my studies as a doctoral nurse practitioner in graduate school. So it's been an interesting road. Medicine's never easy. It's one of those things that I knew I've always had a passion for. So I knew that's something that I wanted to pursue. I just wasn't sure exactly the route that I wanted to pursue. And so that's something that I've had to navigate along the way. And I'm happy to share some of my lessons learned and hard lessons learned. It's not always easy. And sometimes advice is always difficult to get from a type of study that I've went through, in a sense of getting to a track where I can be an autonomous provider, but not going the medical, the MD route, I should say. So, but again, like I said, thanks for having me. I'm happy to answer more questions and go into greater depth. But yeah.
Thank you, Tyler. Ms. Sandlin, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to see everyone on screen. I do recognize a few faces too. Hi, Austin. Nice to see you. I'm really excited to be here and just see all of you guys. And this is a really talented panel. So I'm super pumped for all of us just to talk to the students and encourage everyone. Entering the workforce is a scary place, and we're here to help. So whatever you need. A little bit about me. I'm from Oxford, Mississippi. I went to Oxford High School as well. And I actually didn't really want to go to Ole Miss in the first place, but it was just kind of like in the cards. And so with that being said, Ole Miss provided me like a ton of opportunities through my professors to just get connected in like the magazine media industry, which is what I was really passionate about from the beginning before even going to Ole Miss. And with that, I really connected with my professors and took advantage of the classes and getting to know everyone. And I made the leap to graduate early and leave my small town that all I've ever known and jump to New York. And I moved here without a job. And that was really, really scary, but it actually worked out. I landed my first job at People magazine, and that was in the fashion area. And that actually folded not too long after I started, about 6 months in. So I was kind of nervous just about like, oh my gosh, like I moved here, I made the leap, but now I might be unemployed. Like, what do I do? But luckily, like something else was better along the route. And I went to Oprah magazine at Hearst and really loved that a lot and worked in editorial and found that I was super passionate about it. But I was like, okay, I think there needs to be like something different. Like I want to look for growth in like other areas and make sure that I'm not just looking at editorial. And so that's when I landed at the New York Times, and now I'm doing advertising. And I work for the senior vice president of sales at the New York Times. And I'm learning so much as I go, and it's just going up from here. So I'm really excited, and whatever questions you guys want to ask, like I'm here to answer, and more to come later.
Thank you. And then Mr. Powell, if you'd like to go.
Hey y'all, I'm super excited to be here. Like everybody else has already iterated. It's also great to see a lot of familiar faces. I've known Eden from my time at Ole Miss, and I actually met Kim my senior year, and Kim actually gave me a lot of great advice that I kind of like took to heart really. So my senior year, I wanted to go to law school. I knew like that was exactly like kind of like the path that I was set out for. And Kim kind of just told me, she was like, hey Austin, like, I mean, you'll always be jumping through these hoops. Like, it's a long process and a long path. So like, make sure you really want to do it. So if you want to try other things, just, I think it's the time to do it. Like you're young, like you have your whole career and your life ahead of you. So I ended up going to grad school in the UK and lived there for a year. And I learned so much about criminology and criminal justice. A lot of emphasis that I had was on police brutality and race as well. And then I ended up working at an internship for 3 months in New York for Living Cities, doing just like race policy studies. I applied to probably 70 different jobs when before I graduated, because I was just really nervous about like not getting a job. Like I knew the job market would be hard, and actually like got 3 interviews back out of the 70 and didn't get any of the jobs I applied to. But when I say like experience is key, there are gonna be so many like closed doors for you guys, but also the ones that open will be awesome. So I actually got recruited by Facebook on LinkedIn, like via a cold call. I thought it was fake. I didn't realize like people did that, and responded, and then ended up getting an interview, flew out to San Francisco. And 2 weeks later they hired me. And so I ended up moving out to San Francisco at the same time that Kim was here. So Kim and I connected a lot in the Bay Area as well. And kind of like my work centers around misinformation and harm policies. So like content on the platform that can lead to real world harm. And so it comes with a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. So I think the work is like super important as we face like 2020 elections. I think there are so many things where around misinformation and voter suppression that kind of like comes into my workflow a lot. I'm super excited about the work that I do, and also really happy to answer any questions around tech. I think there are a lot more options than people realize. You can do a lot of things that, I mean, I just didn't realize like were people's jobs. So I'm happy to be here and happy to answer all the questions as well.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I would like to start with a question of my own. We will start with Mr. Powell. And my question is, how did all of you decide to get into your field, and what steps did you take to get started?
I think that, I mean, this is a great question again, because I think like I'm also at the point of at least like what I think of my career as being a professional pivot. I started studying for the LSAT probably around 9 months ago to apply to like law school like this fall. And I think having your plan A, your plan B, your plan C, and your plan D, kind of like really just being as prepared as you can. I didn't really know that like working in tech would be something that I wanted to do. I think all the jobs that I applied to were actually working for governments and nonprofits. But really taking the opportunities as they come and thinking about, okay, like what is the long-term goal, and like what are the other different ways I can get there? Like I think like, I mean, all of us panelists like have a lot of different ways that we've gotten to the places where we are, but also understanding that like our goals are going to be different, but having the flexibility to find like where you want to be, I think would be my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Whitwell, if you'd like to go next.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of us ever honestly truly know exactly what you're going to go into. I thought I would be in medical field. But I played competitive tennis. I traveled around not only the US, but played in Europe for 5 summers. And in my high school years, I hurt my back. And so, you know, I felt like, to Austin's point, I needed to have a plan B. And I really gravitated towards our journalism class. And at the time, like I gave my age, we were really focused only in newspaper. And we also had a little bit on the magazine side of things, but I convinced our teacher at Oxford High School to start a broadcast program. And basically, you know, we had a broadcast throughout the school. And I basically asked if I could take it further. So I went to a local radio station, and we created a radio show that was weekly. And they said, yeah, you can have the airtime, but you have to sell the advertising. So luckily I had, you know, knew people in Oxford and around the square, and was able to sell, I think it was $5 ads, ironically. But that really set the stage for me knowing that I wanted to be in, you know, journalism, broadcasting. And then honestly, I know everything is different now. It's, you know, the new media center, and but at the time, and I believe it's still called this, but the Student Media Center really truly did offer me a home. I basically sort of just networked my way in the summer before my freshman year, and got a job at the radio station, and did some stuff at the newspaper, as well as the I think it was Channel 12 at the time, the TV station. But that was really sort of, you know, the impetus of, you know, I think getting hurt in tennis, having sort of a mentor in high school led me to Ole Miss, and the Student Media Center became home. And then from there, it's only propelled. So that was how I got to where I am now in advertising.
Thank you. Okay, Miss Dandridge, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. So it's kind of hard to say how I got to where I am today, because honestly, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know. It just kind of happened. Because even, I couldn't have even planned kind of how my career has been the past few years. And it started even growing up, like I didn't have a lot of exposure to kind of, corporate America, or even the types of opportunities that were available, because neither one of my parents had college degrees. And so they didn't have the opportunity to go off to four-year universities and, graduate and move off to different cities. And so my exposure to the possibilities that were out there it was very limited. And it was not limited because my parents didn't, try to push me in school. They always pushed me to go get an education because they knew that there were opportunities that they weren't afforded. And so they always pushed me in school. And so, my parents were really big on like going to college and seeing what was out there. And so through their support, I just kind of put my head down and was in the books in high school, and then went to college at Ole Miss. And then when I got there, because I didn't have a lot of knowledge of, what college life was supposed to be like, what after college life was supposed to be like, I really utilized and leaned on a lot of the resources at Ole Miss. So I used to always be in the Career Services Center. I ended up even getting a job at the Career Service Center because I was like, I don't know what kind of career is even possible or what kind of career opportunities there are. So I spent a lot of time in our Career Services office, got really close to Tony Avant, who is over the career services. And then I also was really involved in different offices like the Washington Internship Experience office. I remember going to one of their events one day, and they said, oh, you could do internships in Washington, D.C. I had never even thought about doing internships in Washington, D.C., but just because of the fact I was very aware of different programming and things that were going on around campus, I would look at flyers and see kind of, if they were having a study abroad interest meeting, I would go. And if they were having an internship interest meeting, I would go. If they had a career services LinkedIn profile workshop, I would go to those things because I just had this curiosity to know more about what was out there. And because of that, and because of the fact that I was so curious and went to a lot of stuff, I ended up getting involved in a lot of things. Like I ended up doing an internship in Washington, D.C. I ended up studying abroad in Argentina. And so those kind of things widened my exposure way more than what I had been exposed to being from a small town in Mississippi. And so, my how I got to where I am is just kind of making sure that I had the exposure that I felt like I didn't get growing up, and taking that initiative to get that exposure at Ole Miss, because there's so many resources at Ole Miss that can help you, get that kind of exposure and see what, lies ahead. And so I knew in my junior year that, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after college, but I'd always had an interest in being a lawyer. And so I looked at, they had a pre-law group at Ole Miss that I joined. They also had an LSAT prep course through Kaplan where you got a discount. So I signed up for that. And so I started kind of exploring the idea of law school, and, ended up taking the LSAT, and the rest is kind of history. But how I got to where I am today, it's honestly just been a little bit of curiosity and faith and, obviously hard work as well. But I couldn't have planned it. Like I really could not have planned 4 years out of being out of law school, being a corporate lawyer at Amazon, especially when so many of my colleagues have told me that, it takes 10 years to go in-house, or, to be a lawyer at a big company and these types of things. And so I think that for me, it's been, I am where I am today because, I've just been curious and I've jumped in and taken opportunities. I've been vigilant about the different types of opportunities and things that I could do. And so I just, I honestly can't, it's hard for me to answer it because I honestly don't know how I got here, but I think it's a combination of things, honestly. It's a combination of just the curiosity and putting in the work and being vigilant of all the things that were possible at Ole Miss and taking advantage of those things at Ole Miss. Because I do think being involved in the Career Services Center, I'll say this and give it back to you, Caroline, but having been an intern and then working at the Career Services office, it really instilled in me very early on at Ole Miss how important LinkedIn was. I didn't have a LinkedIn profile until I started being engaged in the Career Services office at Ole Miss. And every single opportunity that I've gotten since I got out of law school, with the exception of the law firm, has literally been a recruiter reaching out to me on LinkedIn because they said that my LinkedIn profile stood out to them. And I got my LinkedIn profile started at Ole Miss, and I leaned on the career services. And so I would say that, that was another reason why I'm where I am, because I had people investing in me at Ole Miss to make sure that, I was thinking about things like LinkedIn. And because of LinkedIn, I got my job at Gap Inc. I got my job at Amazon because of LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Miss Sandlin, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, so I think my thing too is just like the reason I got to where I am today is truly just like by being connected. Like I always knew what I had a passion for and what I wanted to do. And I saw myself leaving my small town to get to a big city, but like I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And so, kind of like Kimberly said, just be curious. And I found out like through conversations with, friends and colleagues and my professors at Ole Miss too, to just like take the leap, and also LinkedIn as well. Like that has been a big thing for me. Like I haven't been scared, like by talking to professors or like friends of friends and contacts like that. I've been able to like have a little bit of confidence and just ask for like a 30-minute conversation, or like, can you tell me about the role that you do? Or like, what do you like? What do you dislike? Any advice? So just by being connected and being able to just take the risk and just reach out to someone, even if you're scared, I feel like that has really gone a long way for me. Like, I was really scared to leave Oxford and come to New York, but with a little help from my professors who actually, so Samir Hesney, who leads the magazine innovation at Ole Miss right now, he actually took me on a class with him in New York for 2 weeks. And with that class that I took, that's how I landed the career that I'm in now. I got to meet like all of these executive editors in chiefs, like executives, look at different magazines, like media places, not just print, but I got the exposure that I wanted so that I was able to take a leap of faith and actually make the risk and find connections. And so by connecting with him and being able to reach out to those people, I found the confidence that I needed, and someone took a chance on me with no experience, a very little internship that lasted maybe like 3 weeks. It was just like, it was really nerve-wracking and scary, but it actually worked out in the long run. So I just advise all of you guys to just take that leap.
Thank you. And then lastly, Mr. Macbeth, if you'd like to answer.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's kind of interesting just listening to the other panelists. It's kind of nice that we all actually are from Mississippi originally like born and raised, and then obviously had the opportunity to go to Ole Miss, which essentially it sounds like gave us all the platform to kind of excel our careers, which is what college is supposed to do. But obviously, having been to different universities other than Ole Miss, I would say that by far Ole Miss was a scenario that pushed me and helped me understand what it meant to, one, work hard, but also think outside of the box. Because while I knew I wanted to be somewhere in the healthcare sector, I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't know if that meant that I wanted to go to medical school, or if I wanted to do a different route, or maybe I didn't want to do any of that and I just wanted to do something like in medical sales. I didn't really know. So I think that having been from a small area of Mississippi, I mean, Mississippi is not a huge state. Most towns are fairly small in Mississippi, but having been born and raised there, and then getting the chance to go to Ole Miss and just meet people from all over the US, but that just come from different walks of life. But to have, like many people have said on the panel, the professors invest so much in you. And still to this day, I look back at my personal growth and my personal track of getting to where I am in this career, and I still credit a large majority of that to Ole Miss in my time spent there in those 4 years. I did a lot of different involvement stuff on campus, like similarly to what Kimberly had said. And so I think a lot of those, I guess, interactions and people who were involved in different organizations on campus gave me different concepts of other areas outside of just everything that I was studying. Because my focus being pre-med, obviously your classes are going to be very regimented to one sector of study. And so having the ability to hang out with people who were political science and just different majors and being involved with them through different campus organizations kind of painted a different picture of light for me to just help see more than one area of focus. So to answer the actual question itself on how I got here, Ole Miss also gave me the opportunity to do an internship called Experience Critical at the local hospital in Oxford, Mississippi, which, I mean, looking back on it, was it like a true like amazing internship? I'm not really sure because as a student, you can't really do too much unless you have an actual medical license. However, it was that experience that helped me realize it wasn't medicine that I wanted to go in to be an MD, but more so a nurse, because prior to that, I didn't really know what nurses did, sadly. And so I understood more about what a nurse actually did in their role and what that meant for healthcare. And my passion for healthcare, it was much more in alignment with what a nursing role was than what an MD role was. So that internship is what kind of gave me the understanding, which then allowed me to do some research and understand if I'm already almost 4 years into my degree at Ole Miss to then get ready to apply to medical school, what does that mean if I want to do nursing school now? Many people in the traditional track of nursing school obviously do 2 years of prereqs, and then the following 2 years will be in the nursing school or program, whichever school that they go to. But there is options for accelerated second degrees, which is what I was able to do, and did that through Stanford University. So getting my degree in psychology allowed me to be in a class, or a cohort, I should say, with 32 other students who all had previous bachelor's degrees in many different sectors of study. That kind of it was nice because it put everyone on the same playing field. So we all had previous bachelor's degrees and we were all coming back to do nursing as a second degree. It was intense as it was accelerated for an 18-month program to do everything that you would normally do in 2 years. So that made me grow up a lot as well. And then obviously working in the field and working in trauma in New Orleans was very eye-opening. And then that allowed me the opportunity to become a travel nurse, which then brought me to New York. So travel nursing is essentially what allotted me the opportunity to come to New York City. And my first travel assignment was at NYU, which is where I'm now senior staff. So it's been an interesting ride, but like everyone else, I would say that Ole Miss definitely is a super important part of your college journey and also your career journey to just kind of propel you in the right path. But never be afraid to take a chance or take a risk, but always make sure that you listen to everything that everyone has to give you advice-wise.
Thank you. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Caroline from the class of 2022. And she says that this is not for any specific panelist, but her question is, what tips would you give to an incoming intern looking to land a full-time job with the company? If anyone wants to take this question.
Alison, you can add to this. I would just say treat it like a job. I mean, an internship is, I mean, we pay our interns, which is awesome, and not everybody does that. But take on the training that they give you, network throughout the organization to sort of learn the different disciplines and areas. But honestly, at R&R, we bring on interns as if they're going to be assistants, and we want them to, be trained and get the real world experience. So that's what I would suggest.
I would say the same thing. Kind of like mastering your narrative of like why you're coming to be an intern at this company to begin with. I kind of understand that a little, or just more clearly when you walk in the door. Your reputation is your work. Your work is your reputation. So everything that you do, do it to the best of your ability. Find an advocate within the company as well. At least for Facebook, and I was at Living Cities, which is a nonprofit. Both of them paid internships as well, but having someone inside the company who's able to stick their neck out for you when it comes time when those jobs open is going to be really key as well. And again, I think that comes from your reputation with the work that you do.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question from the chat from Michael Bird, who is a freshman. His question is, as someone from a small town in Mississippi, how is life different in big cities like New York City and San Francisco? And how difficult was the transition? If someone wants to take this one.
Yeah, I'll hop in there. So it was really hard at first, I would say. I think the hardest part is deciding to leave and moving. But once you get to where you're going, like being in New York, I would say I felt homesick for about 6 months. And that was like way longer than I wanted it to be, but there are so many opportunities in bigger cities, and you're always going to leave a piece of home with you. You're going to bring it with you, not leave it. And so with that being said, it's just like you find other things, you find people to meet, you get connected, and it's definitely a culture shock at first, but you'll settle in just fine.
And just to kind of build on what Eden said, I would agree with everything that she said, but also in addition to that, coming from Mississippi and moving here, there's been so many times where, especially having moved here in January, and that was like the dead of the winter in 2018. The winter lasted until like middle of May. Quickly question, like, what have I done? Like, why did I leave Mississippi or New Orleans or anywhere in the South to be in such cold weather? And just the culture shock alone, everything can start to really add up. And then you start to question, like, was this the right move for me? Am I doing the right thing? But then there's also those moments where you get exposure to people that you would have never had the ability to meet in any sector of work, whether it's your own professional work or a different type of work. You never know where those connections are going to take you in the future, but never be afraid to take a risk. Because of personal growth, obviously, throughout life is very important, and pushing yourself to move to a city that might seem like it would be uncomfortable allows you an exponential amount of personal growth that you wouldn't get if you stayed in a smaller place or something that felt quote unquote more comfortable in the long run, if that's how you see it. But overall, I think that in general, New York has been very welcoming and also very unwelcoming at the same time. And I think any big city will offer that to you. It's just a matter of what you want to get out of the city and if you're really passionate about what you do in the city.
I don't know if everyone experienced this as well, but I will say that Mississippi, you will find everywhere. It's so bizarre, like between alumni groups and things like that. But when I moved to Chicago, my mom was like, well, let's see if we know anyone here. And I had a cousin that literally lived like two houses down that we didn't even know that lived in Chicago. So I think bringing, to Eden's point, like, yeah, you're bringing a piece of Mississippi with you, but you're going to find Mississippians or people, from the South or from Ole Miss everywhere. And it's pretty remarkable.
Okay, another question from Dennis, another student here. And his question is mainly directed at Ms. Dandridge, and it is, what was the most difficult part of law school?
I think the most difficult part of law school was honestly, it was two things. It was one, deciding to go to law school, I think, and not really having a clear path of like why I wanted to go to law school and, what was the purpose. And so I think that for me, that was the most difficult part, like making the decision to go. And it's why I encourage, and I actually talked to Austin about this when he came to me about law school. I tell everyone to really think long and hard about it. I think being a lawyer is great. We need more lawyers in the justice system. I think we need, more diverse lawyers in the justice system. So I think being a lawyer is so important. But at the same time, I think that when you're fresh out of undergrad, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, it's like, there's no hurry to go to law school. There's no rush to go. You have so much time. When you're a recent graduate, I tell anybody now, take the opportunity, go to New York, go to DC, work a little bit, go to London like Austin did, and be in a different country and get the exposure, and then kind of go back and reflect on the decision of whether you want to go to law school, which is very similar to what Austin did. So I would say making the decision to go to law school probably was the most difficult part for me. I would say when I went to law school, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. It definitely is hard, but I think that if you have clear goals of like going in and studying and trying to do the best you can and keeping up with the class, staying above the curve, I think that you'll be on a good path there. I think that the other hard part about law school is just passing the bar and getting a job. And so I would say that those are all things that kind of come after the fact. But making the decision to go and understanding your why, I think for me was the most difficult part. And it's the reason why I encourage people to, take some time after undergrad to really explore and to go work, get outside of your comfort zone and go explore somewhere new, get some work experience, and then kind of make the decision about whether you want to go to law school or not.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question from Allison Carpenter, who is in the class of 2021. Her question is, how do you recommend getting involved with companies now due to COVID-19 and a lot of internships being canceled?
Austin. I don't know if you want to say. I'll say from there's a lot of there's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of people are not sure about what's happening or how things are going to pan out over the next 12 months. And so I have seen where people that have had internships get their internships canceled or reduced, or job opportunities get snatched out of their hands because of the climate and environment that we're in right now. I think that obviously there are some things that we don't have any control over and you can't do anything about, and you have to make the best of the circumstances. I think that this is where your creativity really comes to play. I think that you really have to take charge and initiative of your own career and your own goals, and be very intentional about those goals and those aspirations that you have. And I think that, the world is shut down and there are things we cannot do, but there's a lot of things that you can do. I keep talking about LinkedIn, but I'm going to say it again, get on LinkedIn. If there are people and folks and companies that you want to network with, follow them on LinkedIn. I know we hosted a conference yesterday here at Amazon where it was free of charge, and it was kind of similar. It was like bridging the gap and helping people get jobs and internships at Amazon right out of undergrad, or if they were a couple of years out of undergrad. And so start getting on LinkedIn and looking at companies and following them to see if they're hosting similar conferences during or virtual experiences right now for students and undergrads, and try to get plugged into people that are sharing some of these resources on LinkedIn. Change if your goal is to build, after college and have a successful career. Start working backwards. Think about where you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years after college, and look at some of the folks that are currently doing what you want to be doing and see how they got there, and work backwards, and start being creative and thinking about the ways you can do that. Even in the midst of COVID, there are so many companies hosting virtual events, both virtual conferences that you can participate in for free. And if you have questions about that, use your LinkedIn skills and get on LinkedIn and connect with someone that's at that company. I always find it a joy when students reach out to me on LinkedIn to ask me a question. And so I think that, utilizing the resources that you do have right now and making the best of the situation. I definitely say you have to get a little bit creative. I'm happy to share with some, brainstorm with some people if you are curious about creative ways to network right now during the midst of COVID. But I definitely think that it's going to take a little bit of creativity, but also you still have to have that willpower and motivation that you are going to achieve your goals, even in the midst of all the uncertainty of COVID.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we have a question from Alex Harper, who's in the class of 2023. And her question is for Mr. Powell. It is, how is your experience in studying in the UK? And do you have any tips for students who might follow the same path?
Yeah, I really enjoyed my experience in Oxford in England. I think one thing I would say about it is the educational style is just so different. So while it was, we had 1 or 2 lectures a week, but most of it was done on my own. It was just they would give us a reading list and I would come to class prepared to speak about all the readings that I should have done throughout the week. Again, it was a lot of connecting with my classmates to understand wait, I have this 1 week, I have 3 lectures I need to attend. I can't actually do all these readings. So what I'm going to actually do is a couple readings and take really good detailed notes and then share them with someone else and just kind of do the knowledge that way. So we could be prepared to speak in class. I think one of the things about my decision to go to the UK is I had great professors and at the University of Mississippi propel me to do that. I never thought about applying to any national scholarships. I never thought about wait, I could get a master's degree somewhere else. And I had professors who were no, Austin, we believe that you could be Oxford material. You should do this. And so they actually helped me think of kind of what I wanted to do in life. I was wait, if I know I want to go to law school, him said, working backwards, how do I get there? And knowing that there's actually just so many paths to do it. I was really interested in philosophy in undergrad. And so I took a lot of philosophy classes, really got caught to the idea of what does justice look like and what does justice look like for different people. And really use that to master my own narrative of saying, okay, well, I want to go to the University of Oxford so I can get a job doing research in criminal justice research, which also didn't happen. But it kind of allowed me the opportunity to say wait, these are actually the things I'm interested in. And then to find companies like Facebook or Google or LinkedIn that kind of have the same path of it actually works. They were wait, your profile stood out because you did criminology and criminal justice. And this is really heavily into what legal compliance looks like in different countries and things like that. And so it just kind of worked out. I would also say like there's the path of like making sure like graduate school is right for you. I think because there are so many options, like not everybody needs to go to graduate school. But if that is what you want to do, like absolutely go for it. But there's also a cost associated with it. And so like the cost associated with graduate school versus thinking like if you had like undergraduate debt or not, you can come out and say, wait, like I did this graduate degree thing, like I was like looking at my my federal student loans. I was like, wait, like this is a lot of money. How am I gonna pay it back, right? Like what does life look like after I made this giant decision? And luckily, the school I went to carried a great reputation to also give me a job. But I think those are all the things you kind of have to consider. And even like when I'm thinking about going back to school as well. So I really enjoyed my experience, but I would really say like think of kind of like Kim said, like work backwards to say like, can this fit? And if it does, like how can I use it afterwards? Is graduate school in the UK going to be it for you, or like would you want to pursue more education, or like what type of job you want to have afterwards, or like kind of like what are you thinking about? But there are so many questions that do come with it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Powell. Okay, and we have another question directed towards Mr. Macbeth from Gray, who's in the class of 2023. And she says, I have heard from some people that they felt they were not fully prepared for the jobs they had lined up upon attaining the degree through the accelerated program. Did you find this to be true? And what type of qualities do you think are necessary for an individual to succeed in an accelerated program?
Great question, and thank you for that. I think that if you're thinking and considering about going to an accelerated program, the main focus that you should have is one, you know that that's what you want to do. So you go in there with the focus of you're going to do it and you're going to do it to your best ability. And you're doing it so that you can continue to progress through your career of nursing, because it's a stepping stone to be able to obviously pursue that path. In regards to accelerated programs, I think every program is different. So if you look at the actual layout of the program and how they have their classes, if they do like mini semesters where they have like 3 semesters within one actual semester. And I think obviously the longevity of the program is very important as well. When I started the program in 2013, Sanford had it or at least for four to 5 years before I started it. So a lot of the kinks had been worked out. However, I've obviously had friends or coworkers who have done the same program and done it through universities that were just starting an accelerated program, because it is somewhat of a newer concept within the last 10 to 15 years. And it was not as seamless. It was a little bit more just kind of thrown together. And in that sense could obviously lead to the ability where people might not feel like they're totally prepared. However, anything in the medical field, while you learn stuff in school and book knowledge is very important, your hands-on skills are what's most important in medicine, and the bedside manner and all that comes with clinical rotations and just the ability to obviously be there and get the experience. I would be crazy to say that I knew everything I needed to know coming out of school to start nursing. I would say that most of my knowledge obviously came when I started working in the actual field, and it's a huge learning curve to fulfill. And it was an easy 2 to 3 years before I felt really comfortable being an ICU trauma nurse, to felt like I had a good grasp of like what that meant and what that entailed, and being comfortable within my role to independently like do that and know that I was doing a good job at it. So I think just do your research on the program. And if you have any specific questions about certain programs and how they're laid out, I'm happy to answer that after. If you want to reach out to me, just let me know.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, thanks for all of your great questions. I hate that we cannot get to all of them, but if panelists would like to contribute, would like to continue the conversation, please feel free to drop your contact info in the chat. And let's wrap up with one last question. What is one piece of advice you would give to a college student in times of COVID and beyond?
I'll just say one quick thing. I think when you're moving out of college into pursuing your career post-college, I think what you should always remember is to stay true to yourself and your values. Don't go down a path of a career or an opportunity because it seems like it's supposed to be the right fit, because that's what you think everyone wants you to do, or that's what you've always grown up thinking that you were supposed to do. Maybe it's something that's a total 180 from what your original plan was after college, And now that COVID has occurred, you're, like everyone has said, you know, it's time to be more creative about your path postgraduate to figure out what that's going to be for the next step. But always stay true to yourself and your values, and always remember to dig deep down within your personal self to know what makes you happy and fulfilled, because no matter what career, how amazing it is that you may pursue after college, if you're not passionate about it and you don't love what you do every day, it's not going to be the most fulfilling scenario. And it's a shame to obviously shorten yourself from that experience in life. So just make sure that now is the time that you have the opportunity to make that decision. So stay focused on who you are as a person and where you want to go with your future.
I guess the other thing I'd add is just with the compression of, jobs, although there are a lot of industries like that are succeeding, tech, medical. So don't think that every industry is always is cutting back jobs just because of COVID. And I do think that we will recover, travel, hospitality industry, et cetera, in the next 12 plus months. But I think being well-rounded and being able to handle multiple sort of things within your job. And I always tell people that they need to tackle their assigned job and their assigned work. But when you can start taking on more responsibility or taking on special projects or things like that, that's going to set you apart from your peers and show that you are well-rounded and you can handle multiple facets. Because if there does come a pinch and someone has, if jobs are cut, or I rely on the people that can do a lot of different things and are very diverse. So and I would echo what Tyler said too. I mean, my mom always taught me about values, about being true to myself, about the honor code and being, truthful and honest. And all of those things are so true in the workforce, because, the people that we gravitate towards are people that we've built a relationship with, we've built trust with. So I think just, coming forward with that, I mean, Austin made a good point about knowing sort of your narrative and knowing who you are, but I think all of that is very true.
I can go next. I think like more, maybe like a little bit more on an emotional note. It's just like, make sure you're taking care of yourself. I think like one, like you're not gonna be able to do your best work if like you're not okay. So that means like prioritizing like your mental health, like prioritizing like a lot of the introspective work that Tyler was talking about. And the next, I mean, at least like for me in my journey, it was like, Austin, like you got to believe in yourself. Like if you don't believe in yourself, like nobody else will. And I think like Ole Miss was a great place to have a lot of professors and faculty and staff from the Honors College and from the Trent Lott Institute say like, like we want to push you to do these things. And that was helpful. But once you leave Ole Miss, like that's kind of gone. And so you have to find people in your personal life, in your circles, whether that's family and the friends that you call family, to kind of like help usher you along along the path as well. I think like one of the biggest things I've learned from at least like my 2 years at Facebook is like take charge of your career. The opportunities will open up when your work is your reputation. There are a lot more things that you can do than you realize, but you won't have the opportunity unless you go for it. So.
I would just say, to piggyback off of Austin, definitely taking care of yourself. And, I think that one of the things that I don't think that, I was prepared for coming out of college was just like, I kind of had this rosy view that, once I graduated college, life was going to be so great and everything was going to be so easy. And, being adulting, as we like to call it, was going to be a breeze. And I learned very quickly that adulting was not a breeze and that they can have adulting back any day that they want, because it's not always cracked up to what you think it may be. And so my best advice to people coming along is that there are going to always be things that happen in your career that sometimes, or in life in general, that you are not prepared for. And there are always going to be mountains and hills that you have to climb to get to where you want to be. But I think that, having goals and having determination that, you are going to be successful and that you are going to reach your goals, and having that vision in mind and having that goal, I think will help propel you to where you want to be, because things will get challenging sometimes. There are always going to be things that you have no control over that happen. And I'll share this personal story really quickly, but even when I was in law school, my third semester of law school, my mom unexpectedly passed away. And I just had no idea that I never thought something like that could happen to me. And, you hear about people talking about it, you just don't expect those things. And I think as a college student at Ole Miss, I was like, oh, I'm immune to things happening to me. This is not going to happen to me. And that happened to me in my last semester of law school. And it was so unexpected. And I could have done two things. I could have said, okay, there's no way I can get over this. It's a pause in my dreams and what I want to do. Or, I did the opposite, can keep pressing forward and know that, things are going to happen, and life is not always going to be a breeze, but it's up to me to keep persevering through even the challenges of life. So even as we continue to go through COVID, as we continue to go through the unpredictable, future ahead, I think that you have to have the determination that things are going to happen and you have no control sometimes over the things that happen, but you have to keep your head up and keep pushing forward and keep your goals and your visions in mind.
That's great. I think what everyone said is really great. And I kind of hear the theme that we have to adapt to change, especially in all of these uncertain times. And I feel like that's something that we should all take with a grain of salt, because change is super scary and we don't know what comes after it. And it's all very uncertain. But right now, I think is just a time for us to take care of ourselves and see what we can learn throughout all of this. And, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll deal with it while we can now and figure it out as we go.
Okay, unfortunately, our time is up for our panel discussion, but panelists, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today and giving us all such good advice. I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you so much. See y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.